Hello,
Dieses
together.
Meeting wird aufgezeichnet.
I will bring you my report about German military music in the special field of action. And it is called Music in Uniform, the German Apparatus of Repression and its Acoustic Symbolism 1940 to 1945. I start. Auf keinem Gebiet der Künste fanden die speziellen Mittel der Macht des Dritten Reiches, Expansion und Selbstvergötzung eine so gute Grundlage, solche Voraussetzungen für die eigenen Auffassungen und überhaupt die ganze Einstellung vor, wie gerade bei der Musik. This observation from Joseph Wolf also accounts for music in uniform regarding the different branches of Wehrmacht, Waffen-SS and the German police. It can also be applied to various uniform bands of the Nazi Partei and its formation, which were presumably involved in maintaining the morale of the troops during the German occupation of Norway. Military music in the Wehrmacht was characterized by the fact that the bands were under the administrative control of the individual units of their commanders and under the technical control of 3 military music directors of equal rank. For the Army, Professor Hermann Schmidt, the Air Force, Professor Hans Felix Husadl, and the Navy, Professor Karl Flick. With Police Lieutenant Colonel Wilhelm Schierhorn, the regular police, Ordnungspolizei, had a music director of its own. Sturmbannführer Leander Haug had a similar function for the bands of the Waffen-SS. Due to its complexity and as a research of this topic, the music organization of the NSDAP or its formation, it's not dealt with here. I show pictures. That is the complete music organization of the Wehrmacht. That was the General Professor Dr. Erich Schumann. He was an organizer in the Oberkommando der Wehrmacht for military music. That was Obermusikinspizient Professor Hermann Schmidt for the Army. Obermusikinspizient Karl Flick for Kriegsmarine. And for the Air Force music oder the Luftwaffenmusik, Obermusikinspizient Hans Felix Husadl. And you will see the combination of new influence in the Air Force music. It was similar occupation. This picture from Ernst Krenek's Johnny spielt auf as an ad for the Luftwaffen military music, a saxophone player, and also it was for Entartete Musik, the exhibition of the Nazi Partei. That was the modern unit of military music of the German army. It was the Air Force bands or die Luftwaffenmusik. One feature of the Nazi state was the constant competition between various partisan and governmental organizations concerned with music, its organization and control. This is also reflected in the organization and presentation of music within an overlapping troop moral, welfare and recreational support service. In addition to live performances by the bands of the Wehrmacht, Waffen-SS and regular police. The chief of the regular police in charge of the occupied Norwegian territories with headquarters in Oslo, for example, was assigned with a Stabsmusikchor, the bands of the Wehrmacht, and other hand were organized in accordance with their service-specific requirement of the Army, Navy and Air Force, and terribly rivaling each other. Of political note were the Air Force Band, which included saxophone musicians, among other things, and conclusively set themselves apart from the other military wind ensembles in German uniforms in cultivating a modern and ideologically provocated style. Primary remarks. Hans Werner Heiste identifies occupation as part of their pursuit of world domination as keystone of the National Socialist strategy, in which music, in accordance with politics, range between appeasement and terror, respectively musical material oscillating between smashing and shooting sounds, both in domestic and foreign strategies. The idea of extreme domination serving included interest, results of both fields. With that, he presented a striking outline of the aggressive Nazi music program, not only as aspect played by music in uniform, but also of a broader concept which be called music in military context. Music was thus adapted to fit the political ideological processes and scenarios resulting from German domination. It became unquitous as a resounding symbol of power, with or without uniforms. This approach was also taken during the occupation of Norway. Military bands were an organizational element of the German Wehrmacht in all conquered territories, and this presentation is presumably the first one aimed at analyzing their significance as an integral part of Germany's occupation policy, using Norway as an example. As military bands accompanied the combat units to the front lines, the military music they performed during and after combat operation had an immediate effect as opposed to the manifold cultural measures taken by the new German rulers, which took some time to take effect. While several publications exist on the topic of occupation power and their systematic use of musical presence, none of them offer any relevant information of the actions and effects of military music. At this point, it would seem appropriate to refer to war as a father of all things, in order to shed some light on this hitherto often neglected topic. A statement in this context from 1941 reads: Ein altes griechisches Sprichwort behauptet, der Krieg sei der Vater aller Dinge. Wie weit das allgemein zutrifft, kann uns gleichgültig sein. Auf jeden Fall ist die Militärmusik ein Geschöpf des Kriegswesens und daraus ergibt sich, dass sie ihre Daseinsberechtigung letzten Endes immer erst im Kriege unwiderleglich erweisen kann. Ihre Aufgaben im Rahmen des militärischen Lebens haben schon manche Wandlungen durchgemacht, aber ob sie nun als Signalmusik, Marschmusik oder Konzertmusik auftritt, entscheidend bleibt, dass sie der Wehrkraft des Volkes dient. Will man nun die Beobachtungen dieses auch für die Zukunft der Militärmusik richtungsweisenden Krieges zusammenfassen, dann drängt sich der Eindruck zweier Tatsachenreihen auf. Zunächst kann als erwiesen angesehen werden, dass auch die Militärmusiker an den so ungewöhnlich erfolgreichen militärischen Operationen einen ihrer Verwendung angemessenen Anteil haben. Auf der anderen Seite zeigt es sich, dass ihre künstlerische Betätigung gerade auch im Kriege wertvolle Beiträge wehrgeistigen Gepräges vermittelt, deren man dringend bedarf. Is this true that military bands were, first of all, intended to bring their military psychological effects to bear on their fellow German and troops, but the chances in the circumstances of the offer of an opportunity to the Wehrmacht military bands must not be underestimated and have also to be focused on. It allowed the band members who accompanied their units to the front lines in the new territories to convey this military ideologically in a different way. Georg Kandler states that the victories of the Wehrmacht offered its bands a new opportunity to perform in foreign countries, an opportunity only granted to the well-traveled Navy bands before. It cast a new light of all military music, as music always accompanied to conquering troops and played public concerts in a display of German power. Let's look for the next. That was the complete organization of music in the SS and Polizei, with the Heat, Sturmbannführer Haug and Major Wilhelm Schierhorn. That's a picture of the Stabsmusiker SS Führungshauptamt. That is the commander of the music organization of the Ordnungspolizei. Later on, it was Lieutenant Colonel Wilhelm Schierhorn. And that is a music corps of the commander of the Ordnungspolizei in Norwegen, Emil Höring. And that you will see little aspects about NSDAP, work of music, the organization element of the NSDAP with their undergroups. Also in the Hitlerjugend and other things. That's the RAD, Reichsarbeitsdienst, with his heat, Professor Harms Neal. And you see, music is an important element of the NSDAP. We come to the next chapter, music in German uniforms in Norway. In keeping with the Heim in Reich slogan, home into the Reich, the emphasis placed by Georg Kandler underlines that many of the victorious Wehrmacht campaigns between 1939 and 1941 were nothing but the liberation of former Reich territories or the reintegration of previous oppressed ethnic Germans into the Reich. For Norway, SS Commander Heinrich Himmler pronounced relegation for all things Nordic is significant, documented by his strong idealization of the Pantheon runes and Germandom. This prominent density is underlined by the establishment of the 11 Germanic SS Volunteer Mechanized Infantry Division Nordland in 1943 and its attached 23 Waffen SS Regiment Norge. In accordance with this aspect, Kandler elaborated that performances by German military bands had become a common sign in Norway, first and foremost in Oslo, attesting the expulsion of all British. Furthermore, he points out that the band of the mountain infantry in Narvik was presumably the northernmost stag of Germans' power. Narvik and the combat operation of all Wehrmacht units deployed were glorified by the NS propaganda, and focus was mainly on the victor of Narvik, General Eduard Dietl. Soon, Josef Schweiger honored Dietl, a convenient National Socialist, for the victory with the General Dietl-Marsch. In a different article, the musical word of the Austrian military musician in Narvik once again received special recognition. Here you see Dietl, and you will listen about the Dietl-Marsch. Pass auf, dann lasse ich den Titel jetzt stehen, der ist jetzt rum.
Dieses Meeting wird aufgezeichnet.
Von Zeit zu Zeit sind uns Berichte aus Norwegen zugegangen, die einen Einblick von der Wirksamkeit Wirksamkeit deutscher Militärmusik im nördlichsten Lande Europas vermitteln. Die Zeit der Heeresmusiker ist voll und ganz mit musikalischer Tätigkeit ausgefüllt. Das Musikchor hat Gelegenheit, in jeder Woche ein Konzert mit Blasmusik für den Rundfunk darzubieten. Ob die norwegische Bevölkerung jenes nördlichsten Gebietes, die früher lange Zeit von der englischen Lügenpropaganda bearbeitet worden ist, den Klängen deutscher Soldaten im Radio lauscht, entzieht sich unserer Kenntnis. Für die deutschen Kameraden ist ein solches Konzert stets eine besondere Freude. Einmal wurde sogar ein Wunschkonzert veranstaltet, das eine Summe von 5.042 Kronen einbrachte. Es ist daraufhin der Wunsch laut geworden, ein weiteres Wunschkonzert mit Übertragung auf alle deutschen Sender zu veranstalten. Jedenfalls wäre es ein besonderes Erlebnis, wenn ein solches Heereskonzert des nördlichsten deutschen Musikchors überall in der Heimat gehört werden würde. Further accounts of the musical activities of the Ostmärker can be found at the end of the article. Es gibt hier sogar ein Kaffeekonzert. Dort spielen täglich ein älterer Herr und eine junge Dame, vielleicht Vater und Tochter, Geige und Klavier. Beide die Ruhe selbst. Sie versuchen mit Schlagern und Wiener Walzern Stimmung in die deutschen und norwegischen Gäste hineinzubringen, was aber infolge des allzu ruhigen Spiels nicht recht gelingt. Der Donnerstag ist ihr freier Tag und um diese Lücke auszufüllen, wurde an einem solchen freien Tag eine aus dem Musikchor der ostmärkischen Gebirgsjäger ausgesonderte Salonkapelle zur Verfügung gestellt. Die Folge war, dass die deutschen Militärmusiker auch an weiteren Donnerstagen spielen konnten, wobei das Lokal bis auf den letzten Platz gefüllt war. This is an interesting view of the relationship between occupiers and the occupied. It shows that musical interaction blurred the lines between foreign military musicians on the one hand and local artists of the other. This reflects a problem that could be labeled as artistic collaboration, resulting from the necessities of daily life in an unusual time. These circumstances should be borne in mind. Soon after combat actions had ended, military bands did not only give open-air concerts for the German service members in these areas, but also for the local people. The uniform flags and exaggerated pathos of the Nazis corresponded with well German music, which the local people presumably heard, quite often for the first time. German military marches were performed in combination with higher art of Wagner, Strauss, Bruckner, Beethoven, and many others to prove the superiority of Germany's musical culture. These international renovated German compositions clearly drowned out the contribution of local folklore and Norwegian national music of that time. The military bands of the occupation forces had moved into positions and in this way dominated the cultural activities of all the occupied territories. Numerous concerts were performed for German troops in Poland, France, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, and later also in Greek, North Africa, and the invaded parts of Russian territory. These are hallmarks of the radical change in culture and music aimed to heralding radically pure German music, while condoning all of other types of music for reasons of the Nazi racist ideology. Keeping in mind the strict suppression of competing events and groups, the following report of the relation of public Wehrmacht concerts in Oslo conveys the impression of Germans musicians were able to make on their audience. In den Nachmittagsstunden ist der Platz vor der Universität und dem Nationaltheater in Oslo schwarz vor Menschen. Aus der Menge leuchtet das Blau der deutschen Matrosen hervor und die Uniformen der Infanterie und der Flieger haben sich von den helleren Tönen der Frühjahrskleidung der Zivilisten ab. Auf dem kleinen Musikpavillon hat eine Kapelle der deutschen Wehrmacht Aufstellung genommen und veranstaltet ein Platzkonzert. Frauen mit Kindern auf dem Arm lauschen den Klängen. Die Osloer Jugend steht in der Sonne und lacht, schwatzt wie an anderen Tagen, als hier eine norwegische Militärkapelle konzertierte. Dort, wo sich gestern deutsches Militär und norwegische Bevölkerung schweigend gegenüberstanden, hat sich heute bereits eine Unterhaltung ergeben. Und wie der deutsche Soldat dem Norweger behilflich ist, so gibt es viele, die unseren blauen Jungen, Fliegern und Infanteristen behilflich sind, wenn sprachliche Schwierigkeiten die Unterhaltung in Stocken geraten lassen. Die zündenden Marschweisen rufen sogar ein dankbares Echo hervor, und als das Lied von der Erika erschallt, summt man auch die in Norwegen bekannte Melodie leise mit. Abgesehen davon, dass die einmarschierenden Truppen gehörig bestaunt wurden, gibt es für die Bevölkerung von Oslo noch einen zweiten, in wenigen Tagen sehr beliebt gewordenen Treffpunkt, das Standkonzert, das vom Musikchor eines Infanterieregiments fast täglich im Zentrum der Stadt gegeben wird. Am ersten Tag hörten die Norweger schweigend zu. Am zweiten Tag gab es schon wiederholt lebhaften Beifall, und am dritten Tag wurde bereits stürmisch Erika verlangt. Ein Teil der Bevölkerung verhält sich recht reserviert. Diese Zahl ist aber bei weitem in der Minderheit. Auf eine höfliche Frage bekommt man überall ebenfalls höfliche Antworten, wobei fast regelmäßig die Verschiedenheit der Sprache heitere Szenen heraufbeschwört. Zur dritten Art der Norweger erzählen jene, die die deutschen Truppen mit Begeisterung empfangen haben. Schon seit den allerersten Tagen häufen sich bei allen Kommandostellen die Besuche hauptsächlich junger Menschen, die ihre Dienste anbieten. Sehr schwer fällt es dann allerdings, den Begeisterten beizubringen, dass Deutschland den Schutz Norwegens vor den Übergriffen der Westmächte übernommen, aber nicht die Absicht hat, die Unterstützung auch nur eines Norwegers in Anspruch zu nehmen. Ein Artikel in der deutschen Militärmusikezeitung highlighted the relevance of military music for the illustration of the Wehrmacht's victories, as they played in many German-occupied European capitals. Furthermore, the dual function of primarily members of the fighting troops and then musicians is emphasized. This regular status of service members and competence was a typical characteristic of German military musicians. In this way, these special band performances in the new periphery of the Großdeutsches Reich took on a double meaning for the occupied on the one hand and the occupants of the other. The frequent use of uniformed wind and string orchestras as practiced by the bands of Wehrmacht, the regular police, Waffen-SS and other party organization once more underlines the significance of music in uniform and adds to the important role of German cultural polity music had at the time. In functioned of parts of a musical culture established by the new governing power under different terms, the intention was to profoundly and permanently transfer the nationally shaped musical landscape of occupied territories in the German-centric cultural landscape. Music is a specific form of wind music. Music and its specific form of wind music and performance by uniform ensembles of all shades was a significant characteristic of how the Nazi state presented itself, whether of the German heartland or in the conquered or occupied countries. Look at the next. We can see it. But we see a little film sequence of German troops as demonstration of power and symbolic in Norway. For example, of the 7th October 1942, the Thanksgiving celebration was held in Oslo in the square of the university and can serve as a striking example. It was organized by the higher SS and police leader, who had been installed by order of Reichskommissar Josef Terboven on 3rd October 1942. 3 bands, one from the Air Force and one each from the Navy and the police, participated, performing together with the ballet of the German theater. Stabsmusikmeister Gröning, Air Force, was responsible for coordinating the 150 musicians. At 1 o'clock, the three bands opened the festivities with a public concert. When the Reichskommissar arrived, they played a fanfare march, followed by the obligated Thanksgiving verse, a dance performance by the German theater ballet, a march, speeches, a thick Heil to the Führer, leader of the nation, and finally more march music. Of course, the minutes also noted the participation of the fife and drum band and the Guard of Honor. The Oslo Garrison Band from the army, however, did not participate since they were on leave. Thanksgiving celebrations are now to take back to pre-Christian times, to be integrated later into the religion's canon of Christianity. They were instrumentalized again during the Third Reich and immediately after his election in 1933. Hitler ordered Thanksgiving to be centrally celebrated on the first Sunday of October. The law conserving holidays made Thanksgiving Day a statutory holiday to be celebrated on the first Sunday after 29 September. Given the vital role assigned to the peasantry as an essential part of the Reichsnährstand, and according to the general Blut and Boden rhetorics, Thanksgivings became consonantly charged with state ideology, culminating in a Reichs Thanksgiving celebration organized by the Reichs Ministry of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda and graduating Auschwitz celebration in the occupied territories such as in Oslo. Over the time, the population started creating the Wehrmachtsband and the music performances they give at their individual garrison, which is reflected in the article published in the German military music journal Deutsche Militärmusiker-Zeitung. You see Reichskommissar Terboven and the higher commander of SS and police. And that you see information about the German military music in Norway. You see also the transportation of musicians of the army in this time to Norway. And also a Platzkonzert of a music of the Air Force, also in Norway. And that is a picture about a concert, an open air concert of army band in Oslo, and also information about in the German military music newspaper about the activities of a music corps in Norway. It's that also the Air Force band with a concert on a ship to transported army members to Norway. Also activities with music on the warship Tirpitz. I go on. 15 Wochen sind bereits vergangen, seit wir Lillehammer in Norwegen verlassen haben. Unser Abschied aus diesem uns so vertrauten Städtchen war nicht so leicht, sind doch viele Freunde und treue Menschen gekommen, uns am Bahnhof den letzten Händedruck zu geben. Mit Herzlichkeit hat man der Besatzungstruppe dieses Geleit gegeben. Es war der Antritt einer langen Reise, die ins Ungewisse führte. The sense underlining this wasteful way was a military band that had to deploy from the calm and peaceful Lillehammer in Norway to Finland near the Arctic Circle. On the order of the military governor of Oslo, a large Wehrmacht concert was performed in the Bislett Stadion on 7 August 1942. For this purpose, two bands of the army, one each of the Air Force and the Navy, as well as bands of the regular police and the Waffen-SS were placed at his disposal, though that approximately 350 musicians were available for this charity event in support of the Red Cross. Stabsmusikmeister Kröning and Stabsmusikmeister Klieg conducted the three-part concert. As shown in pictures, they started with arrangements of popular compositions by renowned German composers and Grieg. Edward Grieg's renowned composition Morgenstimmung and Solveig Thang were performed to pay special homage to Norway. An assemblage of renowned marches conforming of the era of time was next, probably involving a performance by fife and drum musicians. The concert ended with a großer Zapfenstreich, and as the soldiers were marching home to the barracks, Preußen's Gloria closed the event, both musical numbers emphasizing the German claim of a glorious military history and present. Let's look for the... On 20th April, Adolf Hitler's birthday, the German forces in Norway constituted celebrations involving military music performances. Propagandistic praise, excessive glorification, and the festival and iconic music performances typically on such occasions were staged as the program unfolded. You will see it later. During the official celebrations scheduled for the Heroism Commemoration Day, Heldengedenktag in Trondheim on 15 March 1942, a Nazi party member named Sauerteig ridiculed the event. He told the Reichskommissariat Propaganda Division that while just one Wehrmacht officer had held a speech, there had been neither a party nor a Reichskommissariat representative present to address the audience. The commander on the ground, General Brandt, dismissed this accusation with the remark that the punctual beginning on the church service in the cathedral would not have been endured and additional speeches had been held. Left speechless and applausedly announced that civil Nazi representative could only seize the opportunity to play their runs, while yet again a military band was playing Ich hat einen Kameraden, as well as the Deutschlandlied and the Horst Wessel-Lied. So Norwegians, for their part, overtly rejected this familiarization presentation the rulers gave of themselves. The leader of the Norwegian police, responsible for the security service on that day, for instance, was arrested by the German Sicherheitspolizei because he had called the celebration for the Heroes Commemoration Day as Kasperle-Theater. There were more events, such as Reichskommissariat's second anniversary. They were celebrated and accompanied by military music performances. In April 1994, presumably civilian dance bands were primarily involved, as the program describes. The pertinent reports by the SS Intelligence Service summarize that the celebration of 9th April 1941, the anniversary of the German invasion of Norway, passed off without critical roots, demonstration or strikes. The better than expected course of the day was ascribed by the warning and comprehensive primitive measures by the Reichskommissar and to the fear of Norwegian resistant of result German countermeasures. Despite of other official pronouncements of this issue, their reports demonstrate Norway's overt resistance to the Reichskommissar and its forced administration. The band referred to as Kapelle Wiener in the program, however, is an orchestral instrumentation used for broadcast by the Oslo military radio station, which again mainly included members of the Wehrmacht. Let's look. That are a summary of military bands in Norway, and that's our information about the festivals what I read. That was the Bislett Stadion, and that's the program. That's a big concert in this stadium, and this is Hauptsturmführer August Nickel, the leader and commander of the Musikkorps Waffen-SS Regiment Norge, and that is entertainment music for the Reichskommissariat. The higher SS and police leader in Oslo also seized this opportunity to stake a special concert with light music. That is the program. The band of the replacement battalion of the Norwegian Legion, a unit formed by volunteers, provided the entertainment band for the evening. In addition, the German theater, established at the Oslo Nationaltheatret, hosted a ceremony on this occasion. Presumably, military musicians were temporarily detached to its orchestra to support the unusual ensemble. As soon by the broadcasting records held in the archives of the Reichskommissariat, these temporary duty detachments are carefully documented. Most of these orchestral musicians were Norwegian and therefore employed and paid by the Reichskommissariat. The Wehrmacht provided considerable support to the orchestras, ranging from the transport of instruments to temporary duty detachment of military musicians. The Reichskommissariat was again responsible for financing such services. Until shortly before the end of the war, the Oslo military broadcasting station operated smoothly, as pertinent examples show. The guard platoon of the band, company of the 1st Naval Replacement Battalion, and the band of the Wehrmacht Armed Forces Commander Norway, among other bands, provided the musicians. The military musicians were temporarily detached to the broadcasting station's band, the entertainment orchestra, or the symphonic orchestra, frequently performing for the various Deutsche Sendung in Norwegen. Military musicians, including the bandmasters, tend to be sensitive service members. In wartime, these military musicians each discovered their own access to music and their audiences in the unknown environment of the occupied area. Serving as a chronicle music paraphrase a campaign's history, many marches bear witness to the portion of military music. Popular folk songs from these places were another source of inspiration to be used as a basic for more ample composition. There are indications that this was also the case in Norway. Franz Josef Breuer, for example, composed a fantasy über norwegische Volkslieder for windband and organ. Currently extended inventures of musical sources and other documents give proof to the following uniform bands in Norway. That was what I see you. Unfortunately, it has not been possible yet to extern the identity codes and members of the bands of the Army, Air Force, and Navy of the Wehrmacht or their home station and employed areas, which means that neither their numbers of personal strengths nor their musical impact can be reiterated at the moment. During the period of occupation, various Oslo orchestras, for example for the broadcasting station, mainly performed with the local workforce, that is, Norwegian musicians who were remunerated by the Reichskommissariat. As mentioned before, this relationship especially reflects the musical artistic collaboration between occupiers and the occupied. Werner Heidler is right when, in this context, he mentions that there had been some inkomplizierte Kollaboration auch längst vor 1939 vor den eigentlichen militärisch vermittelten Besatzungen im Krieg. I show the rest on the pictures. That's what I say to you. Now I come to the conclusion. As the example of Norway shows, the omnipresence of German military and wind music was a distinguished feature of the way the Nazi regime presented itself as part of the official offensive cultural occupation policy aimed at conquering an audience strange to it at first. As its repertoire, which was mostly in conformity with the Nazi regime, including a considerable number of scores that served homage and ceremonial purposes. It was obviously used for propaganda purposes and helped to convene consciously or subconsciously the Nazi ideology that a larger variety of ideology uncommitted audiences in the territories occupied by Germany. In the occupied areas, the bands of Wehrmacht, the bands of regular police and Waffen-SS, as well as the bands of Nazi party formations, such as Hitlerjugend and Reichsarbeitsdienst, enriched the cultural activities. Their members were considered active propagandists and meant to win the hearts and minds at the people in the occupied territories. Under National Socialist rule, military and wind music were politically hijacked and tailored to meet governmental objectives. The kind of music was This kind of music was ideologized, placed in the service of both the Volksgemeinschaft and competing Nazi party organizations and symbolized the sound of Nazi cult. In the consequence, the image of military music was badly diminished on the long-term basis. These aspects of this issue, which are still only regularly outlined, require further and deep research. That was my report, and I show you the last pictures. And you will find this report in this book that is published now, and you can read all this better than I can speak in English. Thank you.
Thank you, Manfred.
Ja.
Yes.
Also entschuldige mein Englisch, aber besser ging's nicht aus dem Stand.
Okay. Okay. We are still recording because we have a few minutes for questioning and question answer session, and perhaps Raoul, you have some comments or questions now in perfect English. Ours is not so perfect.
Yeah. Do
Ra-
it in
Raoul.
German.
Raoul,
yeah.
what do you say?
Well, first of all, you got to realize that I'm getting deaf, and I had a very difficult time, especially when you switched from German to English. I wasn't sure which language you were talking, because what. First of all, what is the purpose of this paper?
The the background is that original versions are in the English published version. They told me to do it in German language. Es gibt the example as a Zitate. You know Zitat?
No,
Yeah.
citation.
Yeah.
Citation.
Yeah.
Well,
That was the background, that I speak in German, the original version.
spoken German. You followed that one in English translation? Is that what you did?
Yeah. Yeah, it is not in English translation, that's the original version. Included the text. That was from the, it was the goal of the publisher, that I do so.
The book's
Okay.
already published, right? The book is published.
Yes, that is published now, and then I take this version, the original version, the published version.
And now what are you going to do with this paper if the book is published?
Yeah. It was my report that it was the beginning of the report for EGEP. That was
I see. Okay.
the background. That was the background.
Uh-huh.
And now it's published.
Yeah. So what are you going to do with it now? It's published.
Ja. Deswegen weiß ich nicht, ob
Yeah.
wir den brauchen oder nicht.
Yeah, they have to sell it. I mean, or are you going to publish it as part of Alta Musica?
Yeah, this time I prepared a German original version of this.
Yeah, right.
That is much more, and then I will publish it
I see.
with a summary of other article I have in my archive. That's a background. I will publish a German original version of this.
Uh-huh.
That's my goal.
I think that's absolutely right. By the way, is what you're talking about in Norway applicable to any other country?
This was the first example. I have other done, you know it, in your Festschrift. I have done other report about military music in Slovenia.
Romania.
Slovenia. In Slovenian.
Slovenia.
That was the first I do, and later on the aspects of my report to Norway. It was an invitation by the University of Münster. They have a great project. You have seen it on the last picture. The project was persecution, collaboration, and resistance.
Uh-huh.
Es was a research project of the Musikwissenschaftliches Institut of the University of Münster by Professor Custodis.
Uh-huh.
And he invited me to bring this report inside.
Well, that's great. But with all this emphasis on Norway, how about Denmark? They were not involved?
You have the same also in the Netherlands. Also the fields are in darkness. That's no research project at this moment. I started on a little bit about with Denmark, and Custodis planned the same for the Netherlands, but I don't in the moment of it's going on or not.
Well, it's a good thing you're very young. You got plenty of time ahead of you to do all this work. And how about Poland?
It's also the same. I only reflected.
All right.
I only reflected. I have look at the German military music newspaper. And so I found a little bit of information about military bands in the occupied countries. And they started on with Österreich and also Poland, and go on with the battles of the Wehrmacht around Europe.
No, that's
And you can find also the things. If wars in Poland, and I found many information about the influence of only German music in the Polish society in this time.
good.
And this is a reflection between music and a special type of military music.
Go to it.
It's a great field, but nobody is interested on this. And only I found 2 books. So es gibt is published about German music in Reichsprotektat Böhmen und Mähren, Czechoslovakia, but they have no information about military music in this period. And it was important. They only reflected the situation of symphony orchestras and other things, but not on military music. And that is,
It reminds me of when the Austrians were in Italy.
yeah,
That the people in Venice, they wanted to hear the music, but they didn't want to show support for Austria. So they would
Yeah.
hide. They would hide in the buildings so they could hear
yeah,
music.
yeah.
At least that's what I was told. I don't know if it's
Yeah.
true.
That is interesting. The Norwegian society is not interested to be informed about these things. If they
Not-
had, you know, they have a great problem with collaboration,
Oh, I'm sure they
and
did.
so they are not much more interested to bring out this information. That's a problem around all occupied countries.
I'm sure.
There is resistance and there is collaboration. And you see in the field of culture and music culture, it's the lines are not with borders. It's all is going on together or separated. And that is a great problem to look
Yeah,
at
I
these
asked a couple
occupied
of
countries.
some definitions, if you could help me.
Yeah.
Spielmannzug, what exactly is that?
Spielmannszug, drums and fifes.
Drums and fives. I see.
Drums
Oh,
and fifes.
I
But
didn't
is it,
realize that. No, because
yeah,
there's
that is
a
a,
piece band and then a 24-piece Spielmannzug.
yeah,
That's pretty big.
and that is important to. It's not the same Spielmannszug for army and Spielmannszug for air force.
Uh-huh.
If the army has only 10, 15 members, and the air force is much larger, they have 20, 24, and much more members.
Hmm.
But it's an element of the military band of the German army, but they are not musicians. They came from the companies,
I see. Okay.
from the platoons, and they are not involved in the military band organization.
Well, same in America.
Yeah,
Yeah, except that we eliminated ours
yeah.
by the end of the 18th century.
Yeah.
How do you define Heidler Musik?
That's entertainment music. Heidler
I
music.
Entertainment music.
Yeah, or the parlor music. I think so.
Parlor music.
It's
Okay.
in America. Yeah.
Yeah, because for the cabaret, I see that you had solos.
Yeah.
It's just solo routines in the cabaret.
Yeah.
Interesting. Were any of
And
these?
that was a fact of the Norwegian music organization, that the military musicians are involved in music, Heidler music, or parlor music. They are supported official bands of the radio station in Oslo.
Mhm.
That was
Yeah,
supported by the German army bands.
some of these questions that I'm asking, I think if you're intending your book to be for people who may not be militarily knowledgeable about these things, because
Mhm.
I you know the idea of Heidler Musik, that to me it's well, you just said it's
Mhm.
parlor music.
Yeah, I
If you
think so.
Yeah, if you're writing for an American audience or even an English audience, you need
Mhm.
to define some of these things.
Yeah.
Were any of these bandmasters put to death? Were any of them executed?
No, I don't know.
Because I
Uh,
noticed some of them had 1944 as their death date.
Musicians and bandmasters are dead in action. That I found in the newspaper
In
information.
action. Okay. Yeah.
But interesting is the interest of my point of view is that I look about the situation by open air concerts or
Mm,
other concerts. You will find also German troops and in the example of Norway, Norwegian people. And it's no one picture I have not one picture found out that I see that they are supported by soldiers with guns. You will
Oh.
find nothing. You will find nothing.
Uh-huh.
And so it's a special atmosphere, I think so. And I feel it by myself. I was in in Kosovo and Afghanistan. It was later on, but in Kosovo we played an open air concert. We are fixed up by panzer grenadiers with weapons.
Oh boy.
And that is a situation that was completely other picture and other feeling as I found out in this example as in Norway. And that is very important, I think so. They can understand that military music of the occupied army, they are give a applause from
Yeah.
the occupied people. And that
Yeah.
is important. And so I found nothing about this special situation, and that was the beginning that I look about what's going on in military music in action and what is the result of this. And that is, I hope you have understand it, that the music is a special type of power. And
Es wird eine Abschrift und eine Zusammenfassung für dieses Meeting erstellt.
also,
Nice.
schön.
That was me. That was me.
I
Das
got
war dir.
Yes. Anyway, thank
I
you.
hope you have understand my bad English. It's a long time ago. I have no practice in English.
Well, I said that my hearing is going, and it's
Yeah.
difficult. Plus the fact
But
that I've lost all the German that I used to have.
you are a great hero about this. You look like a 70 old man, 70 years old man.
If there's anything I can do to help, but you say the book is already published. If
Yeah.
you had sent it to me before that, maybe I could have helped. So
Yeah.
when you do your next book, send me to let me look at it.
You will get a copy. I am prepared now. In the next few months, I hope I will collected all my articles, and it's about brand new articles about military music in a variation field of show. And so I hope I will collect it and we will going on to publish it.
Well, I wish you luck. I wish I had.
Yeah.
I wish I had friends that, but they're all dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the publishers that did any that
Yeah.
that I was
And
familiar with.
that's my goal is this report from English give an original version with much more information about in German.
Scusi, I'll call you. Wait.
Yeah.
Hello, young lady. I'm on the video right now. Can I call you back? What?
Hast du denn das alles mitgeschnitten,
Yeah, when she gets to
Damian?
the shopping mall, I'll tell her. Okay, bye bye.
I recorded
My
it. of course.
sister-in-law. What can I tell you? Pain in the ass. All
Okay,
right, so-
but I also have some questions and one comment. One comment about music during the occupation, German occupation.
Yeah.
Last year, I published my book about Luxembourgish music history, and I had also a chapter about music between 1940 and 1944, so the time of the occupation.
Occupation of.
And music life in general, not only wind music, was reorganized, and the military music of Luxembourg was renamed in Landespolizei Musik, and the musicians and the conductor, all Luxembourgers, stayed in the band. And concerning the amateur bands, the community bands, they had to agree to the German ideology. If not, they were suspended. And at the end, the Germans also organized a contest, Blasmusik-Wettbewerb. So contest. And at the beginning, there were some Luxembourgish bands who participated, and at the end, less and less. So, next to the music, wind music situation during this time, also the music education system and the music offer system was gleichgeschaltet, was reorganized concerning to what the Germans did. So my question, I have two questions. One is already partially answered. What was the background of looking to military music of Germany in Norway? And if I have well understood, this was part of a research project about the occupation in Norway. Yeah. So the other questions, in one of the first slides you showed us, there was an Air Force band, Luftwaffenmusikchor, 1938, with saxophones. So saxophones, I remember there was a discussion in Bonn of your time that saxophones were not forbidden but not well seen because it were the instruments of the enemy. So how do you explain the presence of saxophones in this Air Force band?
This is a complicated question.
Wasn't it
It is
good?
not. It is not. It's not so simple to give an answer.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And the background is saxophones you find also in the period of the Prussian army at 19 to 1918. And it was important that the bandmasters in this period, they are interested on saxophones. But nobody, it was not allowed by the Armeemusikinspizient to bring saxophones in the band. But they play chamber music, saxophone quartets in the Prussian army. Later on, after World War I, they organized the military music band in the Reichswehr only in a complete instrumentation as a infantry music without saxophones. And in the Weimar Republic, you have in the Heidler Musik, you have always saxophone with band, as big band, as salon orchestra and other things. And my my think is that the Air Force have about the background of Hermann Göring. It was allowed, and he gave the order, you have organized a new type of military band in confrontation of Army and Navy. The aspect is that the military bands in Italy or in France or in Belgium, they played saxophones. And the German Air Force look about that they are interested
Your sister.
to be a little bit a copy of the Italian bands. And so that's for me a reason that they bring in saxophones in the Air Force band. And Husarl, as the organizer of this new type of band, he was in Donaueschingen, and that's near Switzerland and Italy. And he is informed about what they doing with saxophone in other military bands, also by John Philip Sousa. And so I think it's a reflect of the period we called the Weimar Republic, with influences from music styles around the world, and the order of Hermann Göring to bring a new type of band. And though the Air Force band is the modern type of a German military band in this time and later on, it was the prototype of a German complete instrumentation of a military band. And so I show it on this, you see with this ad with the saxophone player for the Air Force. In die Woche, I show you this slide. And I found out that the ad for Ernst Krenek's opera Johnny spielt auf, the picture, they occupied and do it in the same style for die Musikwoche, and the same is with the plakat, you know, the ad of Entartete Musik. And that is I think the circle in this was that's the saxophone they bring in the Air Force band.
Okay.
But the Army band and the Navy band, they take also saxophones, but not official. They played saxophone.
That Entartete Musik is
they played also saxophone.
Very famous.
Yep. They are musicians, and they played it. And this day I found a report of Hermann Schmidt, the organizer of the army music, and he will give a little information about the situation from 1991 from Donaueschingen, and he was member of the military band who played the experience of 1926 with original compositions about military band on Donaueschingen. But he gives the order that the military band of the army and the navy have no saxophone. You cannot read in my dissertation the background.
Yeah, okay. So, okay.